On to this story now. Altron's revenue increased by 19% to 9.5 billion rand in its full-year results that ended in February. The JSE-listed technology services firm was able to deliver double-digit revenue growth despite the recent tough trading conditions. According to the firm, results from continuing operations were negatively impacted by non-cash provisions relating to the City of Tshwane exposure and for excess inventory held in relation to the Gauteng Broadband Network contract, which was not renewed. Altron's earnings before interest and taxes was up 2% to 1.2 billion rand, while earnings per share was up 80% to 36 cents per share. On that note, I'm joined now by the CEO, the new CEO at Altron, and that is Werner Kapp. Werner, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. These are Altron's first full year financial results with you as CEO at the helm since October last year. How have the past 6 months been for you since these are your maiden financial results?
Hi, Xolani. Thank you very much for having me. It's been a very exciting and a whirlwind last 7 months. I'm really honored to be able to lead a JSE-listed South African headquartered technology firm with such a proud history as Altron. And despite some of the tough trading conditions, I'm pleased with this. I think it's a resilient performance, and I'm cautiously upbeat about the future prospects of the business.
Great. Werner, whenever I'm asking CEO about this next question, we're always talking about load shedding, describing how the past year has been. When you look at all the bottlenecks that are there, how has the past year been, and what are the lowlights and the highlights?
Xolani, I think in terms of load shedding specifically, it's definitely dominated the narrative in South Africa. I think from a business perspective, from an input cost perspective, we are fortunate. We are not impacted that much by load shedding specifically. Obviously, it has an impact on customers and on consumers. But I think we are quite fortunate. Our strong annuity base, as well as the fact that we've got a number of businesses that are in growth segments, particularly our Netstar business, our fintech business, and our IT services business, we've managed to deliver some really good revenue growth despite some of the challenges that load shedding has brought to the economy.
Tell us a little bit about this growth strategy that you have embarked on that is targeted at growth. You came in at the company somewhat of a surprise in terms of you as Group CEO. There was already, if I'm not mistaken, a growth strategy that was already there in terms of the companies that are under Altron.
Yes, Xolani, thank you very much. We do have a clear growth strategy in place. I think as a company, over the last 3 years, there's been a big focus on divestitures, post the Bytes Technology demerger. Obviously, my predecessor also very ably steered the company through COVID and the impacts of that. So myself and our leadership team, to your point, are now very, very much focused on growth. We're fortunate enough to have a very good balance sheet, and we are really using that balance sheet to invest organically and potentially through some acquisition in growth, to become what we call the leading platform and IT services company in South Africa. We're particularly focused on the growth segments that the Netstar business, the fintech business, and our security business, provides us with. And in the short term, also really focused, we are cognizant of the fact that we've had some profitability challenges in our Netstar and our systems integration business, and we're busy executing on those profit improvement strategies. Fairly early days, but some of the leading indicators in those businesses are starting to head in the right direction, fortunately for us.
And in the past year, when we talk about the two contracts that have actually come up quite extensively when mentioning Altron is the Gauteng Broadband Network contract, a multi-billion rand contract. Phase 2 came to an end. It was not extended. And the second one is the 134 million rand provision that you'll have to make for your exposure to the debts by the City of Tshwane if they may be unable to pay. Tell us about those two and whether you actually are okay with the way things ended or where they are with those two contracts.
Well, if you don't mind, let me maybe start with the second one first, which is the City of Tshwane. I think it's well documented. We've been in a long-standing contractual dispute around the award of that contract. As long ago as May 2021, the Constitutional Court ruled in our favor and asked for reinstatement and effectively execution of that contract. We've been working with the city subsequent to that, and I've been personally involved in some of those discussions to get that ball rolling. The defining event, and you sort of touched on it, was around December of last year, if I recall correctly, the AG came out and raised some concerns around the financial state of affairs of the city. Even though we very, very strongly feel that we're on the right side of the law here, in consultation with our auditors, we felt it's prudent to make that provision of around 130 million rand. The second contract really is the Gauteng Broadband project, and that's been an active project. In fact, I think we've been involved for about 10 years in both phase 1 and phase 2 of that project. And then we were informed, I think it was around March of this year, that unfortunately we've been unsuccessful in phase 3 of that contract. Now, what that had resulted in is we had previously held inventory to be able to service this contract. The scope of the contract contracted slightly again post-COVID because, obviously, with access to buildings and lockdown, it made it a little bit difficult to execute on some of these elements. Therefore, we had some excess stock, and now with that contract coming to an end, and we haven't been able to continue with it, we've decided to again prudently just take that provision.
Werner, let's talk about the fact that South Africa finds itself right now in a high inflationary environment. The currency pressures are there. Economic growth is actually low. What is keeping you up at night as the CEO of a tech firm that is operating on the JSE?
Well, I think it's important to acknowledge that certainly these are some of the toughest trading conditions that I've ever seen because of all the pressures that you've spoken to. I think what's really keeping me up at night, to be honest, is and what we really focus on as a business is execution. I touched on it briefly early on. We're fairly fortunate because of the market segments that we're in, and because of our annuity base, that we still see growth prospects that are exceed GDP growth. So I guess it's just time and execution that keeps me up at night. Really making sure that we continue to drive our team to be customer obsessed, to deliver to our customers despite all of these setbacks, to add value to them and continue to grow the business.
Before I let you go, Werner, let's talk about the outlook. You've mentioned the same things in terms of inflation, interest rates, load shedding in the outlook. How is the outlook for you in terms of the company? Which are the things that you are going to be focusing on, particularly as we've spoken about that particular growth strategy as well?
Xolani, I think there's really three things that we focused on. The first one is revenue growth. We want to continue to make sure that we continue to grow that top line. I mean, you did refer to some very pleasing top line growth for us in the year that passed. But very important for us is to also focus on improving our operating leverage. To your point, there is a lot of cost pressure in the economy and in the business. We want to make sure that we really manage our cost base well, that we keep our margins up. And then the last one is really, there's this explosion of data that we think we can, really better exploit on behalf of our customers. You really turn that data into actionable insights. So those are the three things that we're really focusing on whilst making sure that we continue to execute on that profit turnaround of the two companies that I previously mentioned, which is Netstar and the systems integration business.
Werner, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. That's Werner Kapp. He is the Group Chief Executive Officer at Altron, the technology firm listed on the JSE. A lot of headwinds, but a resilient set of results in the past 12 months.